Every company is rushing to add AI features, chatbots, co-pilots, automated decision-making tools. The security principles haven't fundamentally changed, but the attack surface has. Today we're talking about what's actually new in AI security. What's just the same old problems wearing a new label. And how to think about risk when AI components are part of your architecture. Let's start with what's genuinely new. Prompt injection is probably the most talked about new risk. Here's the simple version. If an AI system reads untrusted input, a user message, the contents of a web page, or an uploaded document, and that input can manipulate the AI's behavior or override its instructions, that's a new class of injection attack specific to AI systems. Data leakage through model outputs is another new consideration. AI models can sometimes inadvertently reveal information from their training data or from context they were given earlier in a conversation, including in shared systems, information belonging to other users. There's also supply chain risk for models. When you use a third-party model, a fine-tuned version of a model, or a third-party dataset, you're introducing a new category of risk that's similar in spirit to third-party library risk, which we covered in an earlier episode, but applied to AI components specifically. Where did this model come from? What was it trained on? Has it been tampered with along the way? And finally, there's the concept of excessive agency. This refers to AI systems that have been given the ability to take real actions, sending emails, executing code, making purchases without sufficient human oversight or guardrails. This creates a new category of risk. What's the actual blast radius if this goes wrong? Now let's talk about what's actually the same old problem, just dressed up differently. Access control is a great example. If your AI system has been given broad access to internal data to be more helpful, that's the exact same overprivileged access problem you'd have with any other system, just with a chattier interface on top. API security also still applies. Most AI features are built on top of API calls to AI providers, and standard API security practices, authentication, rate limiting, input validation, all still matter just as much as they always did. Data classification matters here too. If you're feeding sensitive data into an AI system, whether it's an internal model or a third-party provider, the same data handling policies we discussed in an earlier episode apply. And here's a good question to ask yourself. Does your data classification policy even mention AI use yet? And vendor risk is still vendor risk. Third-party AI providers need the same vendor risk assessment as any other SaaS vendor. Where is data processed? Where is it stored? Is it used for training their models? And how long is it retained? Now let's talk about applying architecture risk analysis, specifically to AI systems, building on the framework from an earlier episode. Map out the trust boundary between user input and the model itself. Map the boundary between the model and any tools or actions it's able to take. And map the boundary between the model and your internal data sources. Trace the data flows in both directions. What data goes into the AI system through training, fine-tuning, or simply the context and prompts it receives? And what could potentially come out in user-visible outputs, in logs, or in telemetry sent back to a vendor? And specifically, identify any points of excessive agency. Anywhere the AI system can take an action with a real-world effect, and what controls exist before that action actually executes. Finally, let's talk about building an AI security governance approach. Start with an inventory. Most companies don't actually have a complete list of where AI is being used across the business, including what's sometimes called shadow AI. Employees using consumer AI tools with company data without anyone in security knowing about it. Update your policies. Does your acceptable use policy address AI tools? Does your data classification policy specify what data can and cannot go into an AI system? Apply your standard vendor assessment process to AI vendors, but add AI-specific questions about training, data use, data retention, and how models get updated over time, and treat this as an ongoing review item, not a one-time checklist. AI systems and the threat landscape around them are evolving very quickly. To wrap up, AI security is mostly about applying discipline fundamentals, access control, data classification, vendor risk, and architecture review to a fast-moving new component. RiskRecap helps you build an AI use inventory. Assess your AI vendors and integrations against your existing policy framework and identify the architecture risks specific to how your organization is actually using AI.